Hi, my name is Daphna from DonorsChoose.org, and today we'll be discussing how to screen both standard and student-led projects. In this training, we'll walk through each section of a standard project submission. There are 6 sections in every standard project. They are the classroom photo, the project title, the resource summary, the resource cart, the About Your Project essay, and the Describe Your Students essay. We'll identify how and when to approve a section, edit a section, approve a whole project, send a project back to the teacher to edit, or flag a project for our staff screeners. We'll also look at how to screen student-led projects. Spoiler alert, they're very similar to standard projects. And finally, we'll put it all together and screen a few projects from beginning to end. One more thing before we get started. When screening projects on your own, you can always refer back to this training as a refresher, plus additional written guidance, by clicking into the Standard Project section of the Instructions tab. As you are screening, you can also click the Show Tips button, which is located at the top of the screen. You can also check out short prompts that accompany each section of the project as you are screening. Okay, let's get started with standard projects. As I mentioned, there are 6 sections in a standard project. After reviewing each section, you will have the option to select Looks Good or Needs Teacher Edits before moving on to the next section. If a section looks good, either because the section didn't need any edits or you fixed up the section yourself with minor edits, you will select Looks Good. On the other hand, if you find that a section needs editing beyond minor changes you can make yourself, you will click Needs Teacher Edits. When you click Needs Teacher Edits, you will be prompted to select a reason for the edit request, sometimes referred to as a draft reason or draft reply. Don't worry about the specific reasons for now. We'll go through each edit request reason as we move through the sections. Selecting a draft reason, or reasons, you can select more than one, will populate a pre-written template into an email to the teacher. You will send this email at the end of screening the entire project, which I will show you how to do later in this training. You can make minor edits to the pre-populated language as necessary, but most emails shouldn't need any changes. If you find yourself making drastic changes to the pre-populated language, you should instead flag the project for staff, which is a function we will discuss later in this training. After clicking Needs Teacher Edits and selecting a response, you'll move on to the next section and screen the rest of the project. We'll go through each of the 6 sections together so you can get a sense of what this looks like. The first section you'll review when screening a project is the classroom photo, which is the picture that appears on the project page. When reviewing the classroom photo, there are a few things we are looking for to protect student safety. In fact, when reviewing the photo, it is more important to screen for safety than for quality. Here are some examples of eligible and ineligible photos. Eligible photos can be group or profile shots of students, student work, collage images of students or student artwork, empty classrooms, or a picture of a teacher instructing. Ineligible photos are a teacher profile picture, a photo that's been edited to cover or distort students' faces, a photo that contains student or school names or a classroom number, clip art, and pictures where a student's face is prominently featured. You can hover your mouse over the picture to see if the student's face is larger than the maximum face size. If the photo is eligible, you'll click Looks Good and move on to the next section. If the photo is ineligible, you'll click Needs Teacher Edits, select the reason why, and move on to the next section. Next up, you'll screen the title of the project. When screening the title, the best thing to keep in mind is that it should look like a book title. Additionally, you'll want to check to make sure spelling is okay, edit any excessive punctuation, and remove emoticons and emojis, classroom numbers and school or student names, and dates. Let's look at some examples together. In this first example, we have our new classroom chairs 12 to 17. We see that it's not capitalized like a book title, and there's a date in there. So we'll change it to just our new classroom chairs and capitalize each word so that it looks like a book title. In our second example, we have "We love to learn" with a million exclamation points and a smiley face. We want to take out the emoticon and we want to shorten the exclamation points, though we love the teacher's enthusiasm. So we'll change it to just "We love to learn" with 2 exclamation points. Finally, we have "Read every day" in all caps with a lot of question marks and a lot of exclamation points. And every day should be 2 words. So we'll change it to look like this, a nice simple "Read every day." When screening the title, you will only see the "Looks Good" button. You won't see a "Needs Teacher Edits" button because you should feel empowered to make any necessary edits to the title to make it eligible and click "Looks Good." Once the title is okay, you can click the "Looks Good" button and move on to the next section, the resource summary. The resource summary is where you'll see a general overview of materials the teacher is requesting. To confirm what the teacher is requesting, take a look at the resource cart, sometimes referred to as the shopping cart or shopping list, which you'll find just under the resource summary. Make sure that the resource summary includes at least 2 of the most expensive requested items listed in the resource cart. If it doesn't, add those items into the resource summary. You should also fix any spelling or grammar mistakes and delete any school or student names and classroom numbers. Like the title, there is no Needs Teacher Edits button for the resource summary because you should be able to edit the summary as necessary so that you can click "Looks Good." Let's look at some examples of a resource summary together. In our first example, we have "My students need books to improve their literacy skills." So we know the teacher is requesting books, but we want to see specifically which books the teacher is requesting. So in this case, let's say we look in the resource cart and we see the teacher is requesting "The Hate U Give" and "Wonder." So we would include those 2 book titles in the resource summary to now say, "My students need books like "The Hate U Give" and "Wonder" to improve their literacy skills." In our second example, we have "My students need hokey stools and comfy rugs so they can learn in a flexible environment." So in this example, the teacher is specific about what they're asking for, but it looks like there are a couple typos, so we can fix that for them. We changed the words "learn" and "flexible," so now it reads, "My students need hokey stools and comfy rugs so they can learn in a flexible environment." Everything is spelled correctly, and the teacher is including the specific items that they are asking for. Once you've clicked "Looks Good" on the resource summary, scroll down to the resource cart, the 4th section of the project. The resource cart is where you will find the full list of what the teacher is requesting. Unlike the title and resource summary, the resource cart does have some reasons for which you would click "Needs Teacher Edits." Let's go through these reasons together. Items in cart don't match essay. For this one, you may want to scan the "About Your Project" essay, which is the section just below the resource cart. You'll want to make sure that there are no resources mentioned in the essay that aren't included in the cart. Amazon carting issue. Use this draft reason if you see a cart with more than 100 individual items from Amazon Business specifically. This is not an issue for any other vendor. Magazine carting issue. If you see a magazine subscription that is too low, i.e. fewer than 10 magazines being requested, use this draft reason. If any of the reasons above stick out to you when reviewing the resource cart, you'll click "Needs Teacher Edits" and select any of the reasons that apply. If you don't see any of these issues in the resource cart, you'll click "Looks Good." Once you are finished reviewing the resource cart, you'll move on to the 5th section, the "About Your Project" essay. The "About Your Project" essay is where you'll read in detail about the resources the teacher is requesting, how the teacher will use those resources, and what the expected outcome will be for the teacher's students. When reading the essay, you are encouraged to make changes if you see typos or grammar mistakes, or if you see any school or student names or classroom numbers, you can remove those. Beyond that, though, it is very important that we preserve this teacher's voice. The About Your Project essay also has a few reasons for which you might click Needs Teacher Edits. These are materials for teacher learning/use. Use this draft reason if the teacher is requesting items that won't directly benefit students. Some examples of this are furniture for a teacher's lounge or a lesson planner. If the teacher is requesting something that the students won't use but will benefit from, like a projector for classroom presentations, for example, you do not need to use this draft reason. This type of request is A-OK. Improve description of student experience. It is important for our donors to understand the impact of their donations. So if the essay does not explain how students will benefit from the requested resources, you will use this draft reason. Materials not described in essay. If the essay does not specifically lay out the majority of the materials being requested in the resource cart, use this draft reason. If a teacher is requesting large amounts of items, like a wide variety of books, for example, it is okay for the teacher to specifically call out just a few in their essay. Spelling and grammatical errors. If you find more than 10 grammatical, spelling, or punctuation errors, use this draft reason so that the teacher can fix the rest of the errors themselves. If you encounter any of these issues while reading the About Your Project essay, click Needs Teacher Edits and choose any of the reasons we just discussed. You can choose more than one if you encounter multiple issues with the essay. On the other hand, if everything looks good and you've made the necessary spelling, grammar, and punctuation edits, you will click Looks Good and move on to the sixth and final section, the Describe Your Students essay. The Describe Your Students essay is the teacher's opportunity to help donors get to know the students they'll be supporting a bit better. Just like when screening the About Your Project essay, when reading over the Describe Your Students essay, you are encouraged to make small grammar, spelling, and punctuation edits. As with other sections, be sure to remove any reference of student names, school names, or classroom numbers to preserve student safety. Beyond that, it is important that you preserve the teacher's voice and leave their writing as is. The only reason you would click Needs Teacher Edits for the Describe Your Students essay is if there are more than 10 spelling or grammar mistakes. In that case, we will send the project back to the teacher and ask them to fix those mistakes themselves. Okay, we've gone through all 6 sections of a project submission. Now let's wrap this project screening up. If you've finished screening all the sections of the project and there are no teacher edits necessary, you can approve the project by clicking on the green button that says Approve Project. If you especially like the project, you can check the box that says Give this project an A+ for quality or creativity, which will send an email to the teacher telling them how much you love the project. As a rule of thumb, we typically see that 1 in 5 projects are marked as an A+ TAS favorite. As I mentioned earlier in this training, if you clicked Needs Teacher Edits within any of the project sections, you will need to send the teacher an email with your feedback and edit requests. To do this, click the red button at the bottom of the screen that says Send Feedback to Teacher and Draft This Project. You will only be able to click this button once all sections have been reviewed and you have clicked either Looks Good or Needs Teacher Edits and checked off at least one box indicating the specific edit request. All of the draft reasons you selected after clicking Needs Teacher Edits will be combined into one email, which will be sent back to the teacher. Clicking this red button will also send the project back to draft so that the teacher can make the edits and resubmit their new and improved project. We've talked about how to approve a project and how to send it back to the teacher. There is a third option you have available to you at any time while screening a project called Flagging for Staff. Selecting the Flag for Staff button will send the project to one of our staff screeners for further review. These are the following reasons from which you will select after you click Flag for Staff in a standard project. Gift card, fundraising, raffle. You should flag for staff and select this reason if you see a gift card being requested in the cart or you read in the essay that the teacher is planning on holding a raffle or fundraiser with the items they are requesting, or they are planning to resell the items in any way. Is this an ineligible teacher? Select this reason if you think the teacher submitting the project might be ineligible. An eligible teacher must work full-time, spending at least 75% of their day with students. They must also work at a public or charter school or a Head Start program. Some examples of ineligible teachers are public school principals, part-time classroom teachers, or any private school faculty. Coaches and nurses are eligible to post on our site. Is this an ineligible resource? Select this reason if you come across a potentially ineligible resource in the resource cart. Examples of ineligible resources are an inherently religious or political item like a Bible or a campaign poster, an egregiously mispriced item like a 5-cent iPad, an item that financially benefits the teacher like a book that was authored by the teacher, and items that endanger student safety like a weapon. Custom reason. If at any point during your screening process you are unsure about a project or it doesn't quite sit right with you and you haven't been able to find the answers in the tips or instructions pages, select Custom Reason and explain further in the text box below. We want you to feel confident in your screening, and we have a team of staff screening pros who are happy to help. And as Logan mentioned in the introduction video, you can also use the Skip This Project button if your question can be answered by a fellow screening volunteer, as opposed to our staff who handle trickier questions. Whew, that's a lot of information on Standard Project, and you're doing great. Everything that we've covered so far will be helpful and useful as you go on to learn all the different project types. Let's get started with our first project. So just to orient ourselves on the screen, over here is where we have the instructions button, and that's where you'll find this training plus additional written guidance to help you along the way. We also have a show tips button for quick tips and tricks as you're screening, and with each section there is a short little instructional prompt to help you as you go. So let's get started. First thing we have is the classroom photo. It looks eligible, looks like a group of students working. And again, you can use this little oval to make sure that nobody's face is too big for the picture. It looks totally fine, so we'll click looks good. And now we come down to the project title. So if you look over here, you'll see a cool thing that we have in our system that will take a title that a teacher submits and change it to look like a book title and get rid of any excessive punctuation for you, which it looks like it did. It was originally submitted all lowercase and our system made it uppercase, but you're still going to want to check it yourself because as you can see, mindfulness is misspelled. So we'll take care of that for the teacher and click looks good and move on down to the resource summary. In the resource summary, it says, my students need help with organizational skills as they become accustomed to changing classes and preparing for high school. So as I'm screening this, I would love to get a little bit more detail in the resource summary about exactly what the teacher is requesting. So I'll look down in the resource cart here, and I see that they are requesting dividers and binders for their students. So we can feel empowered to put that right in the resource summary for them. So now it'll say, my students need help with organizational skills by using binders and dividers as they become accustomed to changing classes and preparing for high school. Looks great. Now we'll move down to the resource cart, and it looks eligible to me. And we can take a quick scan of the About Your Project essay, and we see that they mention both binders here and dividers here. So the cart looks like it matches the essay, looks good to me. I'll click looks good and move down to the essay. So if we give it a quick scan, again, we know that it mentions everything that was in the cart, which is great. This first sentence here, it says the binders and dividers requester. I think the teacher meant requested, so I can make that quick typo change for them. And I've already read the rest of this essay for the sake of time for this training, so I know that there are no other grammar mistakes and the donor knows exactly where their donations are going and there's a clear student impact. So I'm going to click looks good and move down to the describe your student's essay. And again, if we read through this quickly, we'll see that the only thing we really need to look out for here is spelling and grammar. And the only grammar or spelling mistake I see is right here. My students are creative, caring, and show, not showing. So we can change that for the teacher. Everything else looks fine. We'll click looks good. And now because the teacher hasn't needed any edits, we can approve the project. And I didn't think this one was a particular favorite of mine, although I did really like the project. So I'm not going to click this box here, and I will click Approve Project. So ordinarily, when you're screening a project and it takes you to the next project, once you approve the project or send it back to the teacher, you'll just continue with whatever project comes up on the screen. For the purposes of this training, though, I've moved us to another specific project so we can get a look at a different type. So here we have our second project. And you'll see at the top here, it says that the project was already drafted by a different screener for spelling and grammatical errors. So what that means is that another screener saw this project and there were too many spelling and grammar errors, so they sent the project back to the teacher. But they approved the other different sections of the project. So what that means for us is that we'll see that the looks good button is pressed for these other sections, and we can just skip past them because we know another screener has seen them. So the only one that we need to look at here is the About Your Project and make sure that the spelling and grammar errors have been taken care of and that the rest of it looks good. So if we start reading now, we'll see flashcards help build fluency, especially math fluency. As a part-time teacher, I've noticed that my students do not know their basic multiplication and division facts, tend to struggle with a lot of other math content areas. So the number one thing that I see here that's a hard stop is that it says as a part-time teacher. So what this means is that we need to flag this project for staff because we don't know if the teacher is eligible. So instead of continuing to review this section, we're just going to click the flag for staff button. And here we see, is this an ineligible teacher? And we'll click flag it. And now that project has been sent to another staff screener and we are taken to our next project. And that's how you screen a standard project. Congratulations, you're now on your way to being a screening pro.